Hello YouTube friends, I'm Mark Millian for CompuMove Systems. What I have for you today is a look at CompuMove's user account and user permissions setup systems. First, we're going to have a look at basic user account setups. Then we'll look at assigning and modifying user permission levels. And finally, we'll take a look at different user levels in multi-division or multi-company structures. And we'll also have a look at some more advanced user permission and user level setup functions. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is exactly what we mean by a user account. So when you're sitting here at the CompuMove user account login, now this means if you're on Cloud CompuMove, you've gotten past the company login, and now you're looking at the login for an individual user account. You have to enter a username and password successfully, and when you do so, you will get your CompuMove menu bar. Now up at the top, it will show you your username and your user number that you're logged in now, and that's what's going to control your permission levels. So let's take a look at what we mean by that. In this case, this user, John, has the ability to edit permission levels. If you go to Setup and you go to User Accounts and User Levels, this is where we're going to be working today. And because this user, John, has administrative permission, he gets these buttons, otherwise he would not. So let's take a look first at User Accounts, and then we'll go into the user levels next. So I start at user accounts, and up comes a list of current user accounts in the system. And it lists the user login name in this column here, and then a first and last name for the user, and then whether there's a linked worker account. Now in another video we talk about establishing commission accounts and worker accounts, and it touches on this. And we'll touch on it again today, but that's what that's showing us right now. And then there's a couple options for importing and user roles. Shows us when this person was last active. And then particularly over here we're looking at division permissions. If you look at this, there's an opportunity for there to be a block of division permissions. In this case we've only got one company, our 100 number company. So that's the only thing we're going to be looking at. So to edit one of these accounts, we click into it. Let's go ahead and select Daryl Smith. When I double click on that account or select Edit User from down at the bottom, it brings me into that user account setup. A lot of this is fairly obvious. When you're setting up a new account, you give it a username, it will make it all caps regardless of what you do. First name and last name can be upper or lowercase as you wish. I know we talked about linking to a worker account, and that's been done here, so you see that there. Then there's also the question of task roles and redirecting tasks and import sources and also the date key. Those are all options that control what this particular user is allowed to do in various parts of the program. But what we're particularly interested in today is taking a look at how individual permission levels are assigned for a given user. So when we pull down the combo list for the permission levels for this particular division for this particular user, we get a group of them to choose from. Two of them are fixed. The first one, inactive user, that's what we choose when somebody has left the company. And super user, that's the administrative user. That gives all permission. Those two levels have fixed permission. You can't change them. Every level in between, you can actually manipulate or add or remove or customize those user levels and what they mean in terms of the title that it gets and in terms of the functions that it supports. So right now, our user Daryl Smith is on level 1 dispatch. So let's take a look at what that actually means. I'm going to take user accounts and move it out of our field of view, and I'm going to go back to setup. And this time I'm going to go to user levels. And so what I've got here is a grid where across the top is the various permission levels. And if I'm editing a particular one, it shows me which permission level I'm sitting on. And then down the left-hand side is a list of program functions broken up into categories. And they basically start on the sales and customer service area and move through operations and into accounting and into reporting and into setup. So there are very many user levels. But just to take a couple of examples, if we look at whether somebody can, in the financial accounting system, in MoveBooks, can post a receipt, you can see that there is a PIP on user levels 8, 9, and 10. So those are the 3 levels that can edit that. The levels that do not have a PIP, like for instance level 2 and level 3, then that user level is not allowed to perform that function. So if we look at what a user level means, if we click in the header column, you can see that then the title appears for whichever level we are at, and so you can see that it would be appropriate for somebody in the bookkeeping department, level 8, to be able to perform that function. That's why there's a PIP there. So you can control what your user levels do just by double-clicking and adding a PIP and taking it off. So there are a predefined set of user levels that every CompuMove comes out of the box with. It's not a bad configuration. You might want to modify it further. But it's also possible that you're going to want to make completely unique user levels of your own. And so in a moment, we're going to take a look at how to do that. But before we look at customizing a user level further, let's do an assignment. So you can see we've got our Daryl Smith user up here, and we're just going to pull down the list, and let's say we're going to make him a coordinator level 4, and then we hit save. And then once we've done that on his user account, in the 100 division, it shows he's a level 4. And that's all there is to it. Now there's a couple other things related to a user account. Particularly in this area is his password setup and his email setup. So the password setup is designed to allow you to set a password for somebody or to allow them to set their own password the next time they log in. So if we click on password and we leave the password blank and set it for next login, then that becomes an unclaimed user account. What that means that until that person logs in, it is actually open for the next person who logs in is going to set a user level. So that is not something that you want to do and leave on a large scale. It's more like you want to get it set up and say to somebody, okay, run to your desk and log in right now and let me know when you've been successful. That way you don't have to know their password. You can still perform administrative functions, you can still monitor their tasks, you can still go into their configuration setup, but it's really true that in many organizations nobody should know anyone else's password. It's just an invitation to misuse, and we really discourage it. But if you want to have an administrative person set up a password and confirm it and do accept, then that will be that person's password for the next time that they log in. So the final piece of this is their email account setup, and this is to send emails from within the CompuMove program. So the first thing you've got to do is pick the kind of email account. So for instance, if you've got a Gmail account, you can pick that. If you've got a private mail server, then you can pick the blank line, and it could be mail@u.who or something like that. And so long as that's a mail server name, then it'll work. Regardless of whether you pick one of the known ones like Office 365, you're going to need to enter your user account and you're going to need to enter your password. Now if your password's obscured by pressing that button, you can click it again and it can be revealed to us so you can check it. You need to be an administrator to do that, of course. You can also enter an email signature here. So if somebody wants to have their name, address, phone number, the fact that they're a CMC or something like that, you can put it in the email signature area here, and then it'll get added to every email that they send. So depending on what you're using for your mail hosting, whether it's Gmail, whether it's Yahoo Mail, or whether it's Office 365, all of them have their own security concerns, and all of them are going to require you to explicitly permit a third-party software like CompuMove to send emails directly out of these email accounts. Under Gmail, it's under the Security tab. On Yahoo Mail, you actually create an alternate password that gets used for third-party sending. Under Office 365, there's a setting in the two-factor authentication area that's got to be manipulated. So that does seem to change by the day, of course. If you're having problems getting email sending to work, please talk to our office. And there's a whole discussion about different kinds of email sending that I'm just not going to go any further into right now. Other than to say the basic user account email setup is here off of the user account setup, and that's the initial place to do it. So the final piece of this is going to be to go into the user level setups and look at some more advanced manipulation functions here. You can see that when we give you a CompuMove out of the box, the first 11 user levels are populated. Then after that, it's an open field that actually goes all the way out to column 50. So there's a couple possibilities. One possibility is you can just start manipulating settings on your own. You can say, okay, I'm going to pick number 13. I can actually skip one. That's not a problem. I'm going to give them that function. 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 That's great as far as it goes, but since there are many program functions, and typically what you want to do is make one like another one, there's a copy-paste function. So if I go to level 13 and say level clear, that zeroes that out. Suppose I want to make a user permission level that's very much like user level 6, but I want to change it in some way. So I'm going to click on user level 6 at the top. Then I'm going to say level copy. Now I'm going to go to level 13, the place where I want to make a new one, and I'm going to say paste. And so whatever the pip pattern was for level 6, all the way to the bottom, it's now that same level for level 13. And then I could come in here and say, well, I do want that person to be able to post those receipts, and I want them to be able to do posted imported journal entries, for example. So now I've taken what was on level 6 and I've modified it in some way. And then so the last thing is to come over here and to call this something else. Let's call it the new level. And then when I save, now that level exists at 13. So if I go back to setup and I go to user accounts and I pick into my user and I go to the list and I pull it down, now I've got level 13, a new level. So if you clear a level out and remove its title, it will disappear. If you base it on another level or modify it further, as I've said, you've got a room for very many. And then if you're interested in a map of your overall user level setups, the matrix clip button does the usual paste exporting to Excel that we do throughout CompuMove, and that's a convenient way to be able to build and maintain perhaps a master spreadsheet for your own use. So the final thing to look at here is what happens if you've got multiple companies or multiple divisions and you desire to have varying user levels in those divisions. If you look at this example now, I've added a 200 division. So this particular CompuMove now has two distinct division identities. Now everything that's involved in a division identity is a subject for another video, but we're going to look at right now is just how user permissions get assigned. If you look at Dave the salesman here, you can see that he is user level 3 in both the 100 and the 200 division. So if I go into his account and I go into the division area, you can see he's got the same permission in both places. So his experience is never going to change regardless of what division he's working in. On the other hand, somebody like Roger Jones, right now he's got no permission in level 200 at all. So I could click into his account. You can see right now that I don't even see the 200 division as it exists right now in this user account, and that's because allowed only is checked. So if I go ahead and uncheck that, then it's going to show all the divisions whether he's got permission in them at all. And then I can go to this 200 division, which right now he has no permission in, and I can pull it down, and let's say that he's going to be in a coordinator role in that company, and I save that. Now if I look at his user account, he's a level 3 in the 100 division. he's a level 4 in the 200 division. So depending on where he is, whether he's looking at dispatch, whether he's trying to do financial functions, whether he's trying to do estimating or job processing or shipment paperwork generation or a million other things that are determined by all that stuff that's in the user level setups, he's going to be a level 3 in the 100 division. He's going to be a level 4 in the 200 division. If I want to go to this next guy, if I've added a division, I want to do wholesale increases, I could just do this all as first button. So when I click on that, however many divisions there are, it populates it out. So if I've got a multi-division company and I want most of my people to have the same level in all their divisions, then I don't have to go through one by one and do that. I can just hit that all as first button and then just go ahead and save it, and then it's done. Well, the last piece that relates to that is what we do when somebody's leaving the company and we want to retire their user account. You can see there's a button here for retire user, and all that's going to do is change all their permission levels to an inactive user in all divisions. So if I say retire user, then they disappear. If I unchecked allowed only, then I can see that they are there, but that they are both at 0. So then I save it, and then now that becomes an inactive user. If I pull down the inactive list, he'll be there. I can find him again. I could go back into him and give him a user level back if I wanted to. In this case, I've done so, but otherwise his account's gone. Now, a user account never is erased, but if you give somebody a 0 user permission, then they can't log in. And then obviously you'd have to activate their account to get further back into it and do things. So that's today's look at user accounts and how user level setup functions. If you've got any questions about that, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. As always, thanks for watching and have a great day.